Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's doing fine. I hope this finds you good. I hope you're still surviving from the COVID-19 stuff that's still going around. And I hope and pray that the Lord has been good to you this week. And if you have your lesson book with you today, we're going into session 12, page 109, on Relational Foundations. And we're going to be talking about the marriage relationship and relationships we build through on out to life. Before we even get married. So let's see what Solomon has to say about relational foundations and how he lays the groundwork for what God's people should follow before they get married and stuff. And it says that God created humans to be relational, with the greatest relationship being between him and his people. You know, if you give us some thought, we have to have that relationship with God. We need that relationship with us, and it's a good thing that he made us where we needed that relationship between us and him, because he needs it as well as we do. He made us to be people that he could talk to. He could come down in the cool of the evening and discuss things with us and just talk. And so that's how we build relational foundations. So, but let's go on in just a little further, and we'll be in the Song of Songs, and which is the Song of Solomon, some people call. It'll be in chapter 2, verses 15 through chapter 3, verses 5. And we know that when we're children, our parents give us a set of rules to live by. Don't do this, don't do that, don't fight, don't bite each other, don't kick, don't stomp your feet. And this is when we're with other people, and that's how we build relationships with other people our own age. And we're actually building them as we go through this process. And it's quite remarkable because we don't think about it at the time. But as we get older and we have what you might say flashbacks to our childhood, we can see where some of this helped us build those relationships that we carry on today with some of our friends that we had when we were children. And that we know that when we give ourselves to Christ, we become God's children. We all do. When we give ourselves to him, we become his children. And in his wisdom, he tells us that he made our lives for sharing with each other. And that's why healthy relationships matter. And we can't go through life without having some type of healthy relationship with someone. When their healthy relationships happen, we're more comfortable, we're more at ease, we're not uptight. We have a friend that we can talk to. And that's just like having God right on our side. We always have a friend we can talk to when we talk to our Father in heaven. So let's go on in the understanding the text today. And we can see the Song of Solomon, or the Song of Songs, is sometimes called the Song of Solomon. And it's God's wise counsel regarding love and relational intimacy. The book is a poetic chronicle of Solomon's romantic relationship with the woman that he was getting ready to marry. And so we'll see how he does this and how they react with one another, and how they keep the relationship, I guess, for lack of a better word, above board. So we're going to see also that through this text that Solomon is challenging God's people to embrace a sexual ethic that is grounded in fidelity and discretion. And that's the key word there, fidelity. Especially in marriage, you have to have fidelity. So if we can go ahead and move on over to the next page, we're going to see what preventative care can do for us. And that's going to be chapter 2, verses 15. And notice when we read these verses, that Solomon is using a figurative speech. It means he's telling things kind of in a figure. He's relating it to something to mean something else, okay? So here we go. Hang on, because this is going to be a good one. Catch the foxes for us, the little foxes that ruin the vineyards, for our vineyards are in bloom. You know, as the old saying goes, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So this is true when it comes to guarding and maintaining a love and commitment relationship. We have to have an ounce of prevention. It will save us a lot of trouble down the road. So Solomon's poems tell us the story about his romantic relationship with a Shumalite woman which was the love of his life, who would become his wife later on. So he's going to tell us about this and what goes on between him and her as they build their relationship before marriage. So verse 15 is one of those passages that is hard to interpret. You know, we look at it, it says, catch the foxes for us. Well, what in the world is he talking about, catch the foxes for us? And we have to really dig into it to find out what he's really talking about in this. And we can see that despite a lot of things, we can figure it out. If we can see that he says, catch the foxes for us, the little foxes that ruin the vineyards, for our vineyards are in bloom. When he's talking about in bloom, it refers to the beauty before the harvest. It's referencing the beauty of two lovers anticipating marriage. Their relationship is in bloom. You know, they're getting to know one another. They're discussing things. They're talking, and this is how they're feeling about each other. So bloom is referring to their marriage. The term foxes, or little foxes, hints at anything that could be harmful to the marriage. Just as a fox might be caught before it ruins the vineyards, so too must a marriage be protected from those things that can wreck and ruin a marriage relationship. And trust me, there's a lot of things out there that can ruin a marriage relationship. So that's the reason we have to build them slowly, and we have to have trust, and we have to have fidelity. We have to have commitment. All these things help build that marital relationship that Solomon is talking about in this chapter in the Song of Songs. The preventative care of a marriage can take many forms. We can do many things to help prevent things. We can pray together. We can romantically, continually pursue one another. We can communicate clearly with each other. We can be honest and consistent about all things. We can be kind, compassionate, and forgiving, sharing in a ministry of some sort, and making Christ a priority in our home. That's how we build that relationship and have that commitment. Small things can become big things sometimes in a marriage. And I know that most everybody here has been married a long time, and they've learned how to build that marriage through years and years of commitment to each other and trust and fidelity and working on things. And big things, you know, they can happen. They can happen in marriage, and it can tear it all to pieces. But Solomon has given us a lot of wisdom in these chapters about building relationships and how to lay the foundation for them. You know, many marriages crumble, not because of infidelity, but most often they crumble because of neglect. And I'm probably as guilty as anybody else. Sometimes I don't pay as much attention to Debbie as I probably should, because we're both busy, and it seems like the world's caught us up being busy in things that really doesn't do anything for us as far as us gaining anything from it, but we're busy doing it. So sometimes we need to stop with the person that we have and just look over at them and say, I love you, and start doing a few things with them. You know, take them out for a date night. Have a movie and popcorn at home when you're by yourself. Anything to spend time with each other so that you don't lose touch. So we can see from verse 2 that he's telling us that there's predators out there ready to snatch a relationship away from the people who are trying to build it. They're there and they'll take it away from us. So be on the lookout, is what he's saying. Don't let the foxes in your vineyard. If we look at verse 16, we see where he says, and I think this might be the woman part that's speaking this verse here. It says, my love is mine, and I am his. He feeds among the lilies until the day breaks and the shadows flee. Turn around, my love, and be like a gazelle or a young stag on the divided mountains. My love is mine, and I am his. To me, that means that marriage requires a mutual commitment to each other. Her love is yours, and your love is hers, is what she's saying. So we have to be committed to each other. Trust is needed to sustain that marriage and that marriage foundation. And this is how people who are soon to be married, how they should be. His love is mine and mine is his. And that's a beautiful verse right there. My love is mine and I am his. I really like that. I like this whole section right here. It's got a lot of good points in it. And it's an excellent thing for a pastor to use in doing a counseling for people who are getting ready to be married. And I think Brother Tony told me that he was using that when he does counseling for people who are getting ready to be married. And it's a beautiful, beautiful part of the Bible that should be used for that. And then it goes on to say, until the day breaks. See, they're already anticipating the next day that they can spend together. They're anticipating it. And how many times have you anticipated staying with your wife the next day? Not many of us guys probably don't, we don't think like that. I don't really, myself, and I'm guilty of it just as much as anybody else, I don't think that way. And I enjoy being with her the next day, but I don't really, what you say, might anticipate it like the woman here is, who's going to be Solomon's wife. You know, her description kind of reveals both the anticipation and trust. And that's good. I know when we're all first married, we all have that kind of anticipation. We all are building that trust, and we have that anticipation. We can't wait till the next day to see the one who has my love and her love. And we can also see when it says the gazelle or young stag, that portrays the man's passion about the intimacy that he anticipates sharing with the woman. And she in turn reflects her desire for intimacy with the man by referring to him as her love. An anticipation of intimacy flourished in the couple's relationship, as we can see from the text. Trust giving way to honor cultivated a mutual desire for intimacy that remained reserved in their hearts for now. You know, trust and respect gives the perfect setting for the depth of intimacy that God intends for a married couple to have. Trust and respect. And that, to me, that's just a beautiful couple of verses right there that Solomon wrote, and it is very interesting, his choice of words and how he uses them. Because when we break it down to our words today, it's still beautiful. It was meant to be beautiful, but it was also meant for God's people to keep them, to refrain them from sexual intercourse before marriage, so that they didn't mess up the relationship that they were building. You know, the trust called for between a woman and a man creates oneness. God created marriage so that man and a woman might be united as one. And oneness refers to the mental, spiritual, physical, emotional, and relational unity that is reserved for marriage alone. You know, too often, even in marriage, husbands and wives live separate lives. You know, it's like I said before, the husband does his thing, the wife does hers, and you don't ever have that feeling that you once have. So that's the reason we need to, gentlemen, we need to do more for and with our wives. We need to build that relational foundation that we had before. And I know a lot of you have never left that foundation. You're still building on that foundation. But the foundation needs to be cared for. You see a block coming loose, you need to throw the cement to it and put it back in place. You need to continually build and maintain that foundation. Now let's move on to chapter 3, verses 1 through 5. And we're going to read all the verses of this, and then we'll go back and discuss each verse. It says, in my bed at night, I sought the one I love. I saw him, but did not find him. I will arise now and go about the city, through the streets and the plazas. I will seek the one I love. I saw him, but did not find him. The guards who go about the city found me. I asked them, have you seen the one I love? I had just passed them when I found the one I love. I held on to him and would not let him go until I brought him to my mother's house, to the chamber of the one who conceived me. Young women of Jerusalem, I charge you by the gazelles and the wild does of the field, do not stir up or awaken love until the appropriate time. Wow, that says a mouthful in those 5 verses. That really says a mouthful. You know, these verses tell of a story of the woman who's searching for the one she loves, but she was unable to find him. And if you notice, again, she referred to him as the one I love. She was devoted to him and no one else. She was eager to give herself to him. And when she found him, she made them arrangements in an important decision. She did not want to be foolish, but she didn't want to lose him either. So what she did, she decided she would never let him go away from her. Not having her in her life, not having him in her life would not be an option. Now pay close attention to the fact that she didn't take him back to her chamber. She did not take him back to her chamber. It says, I held on to him and would not let him go until I brought him to my mother's house, to the chamber of the one conceived by me. Or the one who conceived me, I'm sorry. So she did not take him back to her room. She took him to her mother's room. A room in her mother's house where she was born. And by bringing him there instead of her bedroom, her determination was to practice restraint. She was not going to give in to her eagerness to be sexually intimate with him. That kind of intimacy is reserved for marriage. So you can see how the wording is, but when you go back and put that wording in today's language, it's telling us all that we need to refrain from sexual intercourse before marriage. We need to always be on guard with our relationship. We must always be doing preventive maintenance with our relationship, and we should always be building the foundations for our relationship. You know, the pursuit of the bride for her soon-to-be husband is noble, but her desire for him would only come after their marriage commitment. And that is another thing that it means a lot right there. You know, you see on TV today so much stuff that is totally wrong, especially on the soap operas. If you've ever tuned into one of those, you can see people who are having sex before marriage, cheating on one another, all kinds of stuff that is just nothing but filth. That's not how a relationship should be built. So if you want to know how not to build one, tune into one of the soap operas. That'll show you exactly how not to build one. But what Solomon is doing is telling his people what God intends for us to do. Refrain until marriage. Keep the marriage bed sacred. Don't do anything to defile it. There's ways to get around it, just as the Song of Solomon tells you. You know, if a young man comes to your house and you have terrible urges, take him to your mother's room, or take him to the living room. Take him to where the other people are. And that will help you cool off your desires. You know, avoiding sexual temptations mean that natural sexual desires must be directed exclusively toward one's marriage partner, and those same desires must not be fulfilled until marriage has taken place. And that's what the Song of Solomon is telling us here. How can a marriage be protected from the kinds of sexual temptations that can lead to a dismissive marriage? Well, Solomon understood that sexual passion can be strong, almost overwhelming. Thus, he warned God's people to not stir up or awaken love until the appropriate time. You know, our desires must be bought and kept under control. Because if we let them out of control, we're going to not have a strong foundation that we would have had. Like the virgin seeking her future husband prior to marriage, so too should the husband and wife continue to desire and pursue each other after they have been married. Doing so will help to protect the marriage against sexual temptations outside of the marital relationship. And that means even after you get married, you can be drug away from your loved one. Because the little foxes are running through the vineyards, and they're there for one purpose, and that's to destroy the crop. So don't let foxes into your vineyards. Do preventative maintenance. Have date nights. Cook a meal. Have popcorn in a movie. There's all sorts of ways to build a strong relational foundation. God wants you to have that strong relationship with your wife. That's why He made man and woman. That's why He put us together to become one. And I think if you read in Hebrews, you'll see that God meant for that to be how it is. So practice preventative maintenance. Read the book of Solomon. It's a beautiful love story. It's very poetic. And even if you can't understand some of the verses, it's still so beautiful just to read. And when you can start understanding it, then you put your own words in it and read it in your own words, and it still comes out a beautiful, beautiful piece of work from Solomon. You know, I understand now why he had so much wisdom, why God gave him that wisdom. It was to protect us as His children. Well, I hope each of you have a good week, and I hope to see you in church before long, once this all clears up. And I hope Miss Betty, Mr. Gilbert's doing good, and Mr. Ollie, he's coming back with us a little bit, and all the other ones who can't make it, I hope you're doing good. And if there's anything either I or Brother Tony can do for you, please give us a call. Until we meet again, God bless you.